Hey, this is Jason J. Lewis, Superman from Justice League Action, and you're watching SuperWonder Legacy.
You're strong.
I know.
Are you a sight for sore eyes?
It's nice to have someone who likes you for being you.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movie.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing. So, Britt, is Wonder Woman a warrior?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's very complicated, but it's not a contradiction. Tom King. It is very much. It's a very complex the situation, or dynamic for Diana.
Yeah, it's like the problem that I see a lot of times with writers is like they just look at her as if she's Red Sonja or Xena Warrior Princess just from a superficial level. And again, anyone that thinks that her being a warrior for peace is a contradiction does not understand the character. It's kind of funny how the person that's writing the worst Wonder Woman run of all time talks about that contradiction. That's very telling, isn't it?
Right. I mean, the thing is that they don't know who Diana is. They don't read her books. But they also look at the Amazons, and just think Amazon equal warrior women, or the Futurama drama, not drama, but that comedy cartoon, and think the Death by Snoop Snoop, that type thing. And it's more than that with at least DC version of the Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, and they're also going off of the Amazons in Greek mythology were known for like being brutal warriors, but they're not. So it's like,
But yeah, exactly. That's the difference. Greek mythology, that
mhm.
version of the Amazons they maybe were brutes, but that's the difference. DC Amazons aren't brutes. They are multicultural women who have been survivors of abuse, of murder, that type of thing, and reincarnated to live in peace. Not so much as a utopia, but it is to give these women whose lives were taken, and giving them a second chance.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then you have the character of Red Sonja, who is, all right, so there's been technically two versions of Red Sonja. We'll talk about this in a second. But the first version was created by Robert E. Howard. He's basically like the creator of Conan and all that stuff. But then when Marvel got the rights to do the comics, do you know the reason why she's in the bikini? Do you know where that comes from?
No.
So the reason why is, so Conan the Barbarian wears just the loincloth into battle. So when they were deciding on the look for Red Sonja, they were like, what would the female version of that look like? Because obviously they can't have her in combat topless, as entertaining as that would be.
So they basically did, well, we actually could have did the comparison of Red Sonja with Conan and Diana and Calvin, because that's basically the, comparison of Diana, of why she wears her bodysuit, or
Well, we
because of the
we know what a future couples comparison is definitely going to be.
tune in probably next week.
Yeah, but and it's like, think about Sonja. She too has like, she's gone back and forth in terms of characterization. I mean, even Gail Simone gave actually a pretty decent version of the character, but it's
What?
like, yeah, I know, isn't that funny? But it's like a good port, but it's like she's another character that's somewhat misunderstood because yes, she's a warrior and she is very much more brutal than Diana, but it's but she still has a strict moral code and such, and there's a certain way that Sonja is written.
Exactly. It honestly it comes from circumstances. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
Diana, she is first and foremost the emissary of her people. Her mission was to go against corruption, was to go against war, and you know, even just the battle itself. Not saying that she was so much of a pacifist. You know, it that's even a more complex ideal for Diana because she's not so much of a pacifist either. You know, she's very much just in between of
In
everything.
many ways, no superhero is a pacifist.
Right. So, I mean, but honestly, when you take New 52 Diana, you know, the way she is, she's not a warrior in that sense of, just the happy-go-lucky killer. That was only if you wrote her as such. And really, that was Jeff Johns having, that version of her young, feisty. But we saw the Amazons as the mythological accurate Amazons, so that is all that New 52 Diana knew. But at the same time, if you read Charles Sewell, if you read even Azarello, their Diana was very mellow. She had an attitude, she could fight, but that wasn't her go-to like Jeff Johns made her to be. Then when you look at Perez, how Diana was just such a free spirit and this butterfly, but she would still fight, but she would want to find another way. But if she had to, throw hands, she would.
Yeah. And it's like the other thing is like my favorite is when people try and say, oh, yeah, she should be bi because the Amazonians of Greek mythology, because it's mythologically accurate. A, no, it's not. But B, the funny part about that is like, okay, so now it's okay to be mythologically accurate, but when Azarello does it, you all throw a fit.
It's picking and choosing, of course.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Double
yes.
standards, double standards.
The DC fandom has double standards. I would have never known. So let's talk about the origins of Wonder Woman, which even in and of itself, there's a lot of like. Let me put it this way: don't believe what that Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman movie said at all, because I have it on good authority that movie lied up the yin yang.
Yeah, so Diana creation was still very controversial. What Marston and his view of women and being dominant of, you know, he basically wanted to turn gender roles on its head, where you think that a woman should be submissive, you think that she's supposed to be dainty, she can still have that beauty, but she is strong, she is independent, she does not need a man in that sense of not as a man hater, but at the same time is challenging those expectations and stereotypes. Um, he is the inventor of the lie detector, so that is where the lasso of truth comes from. Um,
Hell yeah.
I mean, in a sense, when you think about, like the punishment, quote unquote, or, um, the how Diana dealt with her villains or, certain instances within Marston's reign or just early Golden Age period, it was still very problematic, I would say. Like he used, I want to say this nicely, he used sexuality
Okay.
as
Okay.
as that not so much as a punishment, but in a way it was very okay,
It's
you're
domination. You can
yeah,
say it. It's domination.
um that kind of thing. And it didn't go over well, in that time that some think of that as taboo. Some people think of that as you are very much loose and out there, if you
Hmm.
really are liberated. But liberation is a positive thing for women. It is that you are, you know, um, very sex positive, very just loving yourself. You know,
Hmm.
that's another thing that he wanted to represent with Diana. But at the same time, it just clashed a lot because you want Wonder Woman to be this ideal character for young girls as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what the issue was with Marston, you know, and they, of course, they tried to get him canceled. They, even with Wonder Woman being the ambassador of women back in 20, I think it was 2017 or 2016, 2017.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, she was stripped of it because,
A
uh,
bunch of Karens were offended.
yeah, and it was because of her, the way she dresses, because she was so liberated, because they went back and, talked about Marston and things like that. Yeah, Diana is supposed to challenge the thought process of women and men,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's still at her core was not supposed to go to where, again, she's not a warrior woman like that. She is supposed to be this positive figure, just, overall.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to Red Sonja, who is kind of like, she's like, see, here's the thing about Red Sonja. She is a little bit more of a warrior Wonder Woman if you really like take it. However, it's even it's kind of funny when you read Red Sonja comics, she's not as extremely bloodthirsty as people think she is.
I think honestly, it could also be the art, sometimes, or it can be the covers. But
Well,
once she,
I do have a panel at the bottom of her holding up severed heads.
well, I mean, within her time and everything, severed heads is normal. That's basically
That's
child's
true.
play.
That's
So
true. That's
it's
her version of flirting.
I don't think anybody wants a bouquet of severed heads, but
All I'm saying is just put her in a room with matriarch, problem solved.
that is so much better than um the Chucky baby and
Oh, put her in the room with Trinity as well. 100%. The more the merrier.
true.
Also, Mouse Man. Let's do it. Just off with their heads. Let's do this.
And Sovereign.
And Sovereign. Oh my gosh, she won't have to do it. She'll just flick him.
Or she'll just blow on him because he's just dusty anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, but yeah, it's like with this character. So the idea of the character. All right, here's the origin for the story. So how much of the origin do you know, Brett?
Nada.
All right. So what happens with Red Sonja in the books is so when she's like, I'd say late teens, early 20s, her family is attacked. Her father's murdered. Her and her mothers and sisters are assaulted. I say assaulted, but let me put it this way. It's the R word of Wonder Woman. Yeah, that. So as she's laying out bleeding, a goddess comes to her and says, I will turn you into, I will make you able to take vengeance. And essentially, no man will be able to sleep with you unless he defeats you in battle first. So that's kind of more or less the way it works. And then Gail Simone came in and undid a lot of that and just basically says, oh no, she sleeps around.
So now why would you do that?
Well, it's because Gail Simone, well, remember, this is the woman that kind of ruined well, didn't ruin. Well, actually, remember, this is the person who tweeted she wanted Wonder Woman to throw her maxi pads at people.
Or even if she didn't introduce, Tom Pressure, it was still the fact that she continued to write Tom Pressure.
Or,
And
well, yeah, remember, it was in that run where Diana was only with him to reproduce the Amazonian people. And I'm like, how does that work? But anyway, so the thing is like with Sonja, so yes, she has had some crossovers with Conan, obviously, famously, and they do have a very romantic-y relationship. So if you want to talk about SuperWonder, yeah, we definitely have to do an episode on this for sure. But it's like, so that's her basic idea. She travels throughout the world. She also does a lot of protecting women, and she's basically like a mercenary for hire.
Hmm. I, I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's one of those like, and she is, because so she's published by Dynamite Comics currently. She and like Vampirella are like Dynamite's golden gooses. Like she is the Batman of Dynamite in that she is like the flagship character.
You know, now that I think about it, um, that KO special could have been a lot better.
Well, yeah, but again, remember, it's like it's not like Adams had like a lot of space.
True, but or at least have a different crossover.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Britt. Do you have any idea how long people have been asking for a Wonder Woman Red Sonja crossover?
Oh, I've heard of it. It's just like, why doesn't DC, do it? Because their backstory, Red Sonja's backstory really fits the narrative of the Amazons, what they dealt with.
Yeah.
So, that is a no-brainer.
Oh, it definitely is a no-brainer. But yeah, so then you have, so it's essentially, so Sonya's basic thing is using trauma, but not letting one's trauma define you and stuff. So that's the cool part about this. So then we get to the archetype of the female warrior, because yes, again, Diana is a warrior. Anyone that sees that as a contradiction, again, doesn't understand the character, because again, it's like sometimes you do have to fight for peace. You can't be 100% peaceful. The other thing is okay. Yes, she is a warrior. You know why? The Amazons, yes, are peaceful people, but they're warriors. And if she's the princess and champion, she's trained to be a warrior.
But that is what makes Diana complex and multifaceted.
Yeah.
Because it's not that she goes one way or another in the extreme and, or choosing one over the other. She is the in between, and what I don't like is how some fans blame Kingdom Come for the more aggressive take, post Kingdom Come of Diana. And it's like, no,
Even though they clearly didn't read the book.
exactly. I mean, if you talk about what is it? Not one of the crises.
Are you talking about the Infinite one when she like went to go murder Mongol?
Yes, that. That was done really. I wouldn't say that's not even a connection to Kingdom Come, because Kingdom Come Diana was at her wits end. She ran out of options. The peaceful, motherly, that way of trying to be a guide was it wasn't doing good. So many people were still dying. People weren't listening. So what else was she supposed to do? Um, so she went to the extreme. But at the same time, you still have that diplomat Diana that we knew. It's just she had no other choice.
And she went through the actual legal process to do it. And you could say she formed a special bond with Clark. See what I did there?
Good one. Good one.
Yeah, exactly. If you guys don't know, Britt and I started our own fan fiction universe based on that. You can find the link below. But yeah, it's like the thing about Wonder Woman. Now, to be fair, what people really like, what some writers overuse, is the sword and shield. Now, I understand why fundamentally there is a movement in the fandom to get rid of the sword and the shield. I understand it to a degree. The problem is that you can't go fully in one direction, because yes, most of the time she can use the lasso in her bare hands, she's fine. When you fight like a being like Doomsday or Darkseid, like end of the world level threats, take the freaking sword and the shield.
Exactly. I mean, even though, like I said, we saw in Perez run or even in Jimenez, in a sense, we saw how Diana did the power that she held with defeating Darkseid or Ares is her talking, is her using the lasso of truth because that is the most powerful weapon she has. But if we're going blow for blow, obviously, yes, she is going to have the sword and shield. Um, but it's not. It's always emphasized unless you are writing her um in a way that said John did. The sword and shield is always her last option.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and it's based because as a warrior, she is trained to pick the right tool for the appropriate time. It's also why she's not in the chicken armor all the time.
Yeah, the golden chicken suit.
I love how he called it that. That's our thing. We call it. But yeah, it's like all of it builds upon her being an ambassador for peace because again, Clunrad had this perfectly in the Asgard run. First arc, literally the first arc, Brit, where she defeats Thor, crushes his hammer because the hammer is having an adverse effect on his mind and making him more brutal. Then when Thor snaps out of it, she instantly goes to that diplomat saying, okay, now that you're free, let's work together. And I'm like, and that one exchange is why I will never accept anyone saying that the Clunrad run was horrible, because that one page literally got Diana to a freaking T.
True.
Like I point that out because I love to find those one moments where you could just take a single page and say, this is who Diana is. But yeah, and she has all of her roles as like an emissary. They don't really play off the diplomat that much. That's why I do think, particularly, here's the thing, Britt. Here's what they could do. Here's what I would do. Now, let me pitch you the story. Let's say DC won't completely retcon out the entire King run. Like, they'll retcon Trinity, but they'll make it where, like, the events still happen. What you could do is make it where the embassy is reopened because Diana recognizes, okay, this happened, this was allowed to happen because the Amazons were more isolated from man's world and we need to be more cooperative. So she reopens the embassy and then in the next run we get the embassy. What would you think of that?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so with King's Run, it's the fact that he had Amazon living in, in America, basically normally. So obviously they integrated or whatever without without fail or without any problems. So with him making problems just out of the blue, it really it you would have to retcon so much and go backwards to make this make sense. Because how could they feel comfortable integrating in the first place if it wasn't something set and, you know, established with Diana as the bridge or with the embassy or, just things like that. It doesn't make sense. And also it takes away so much of just Diana's mission because if Amazons are already living in America, then what's the point? What's the
True.
point of her?
Well, you could say it's like she's over the course of her mission, she's shown the Amazons that maybe man's world is not as like as alien or evil as they originally thought it was. But and that's me playing extreme devil's advocate, Brit, because they were putting Amazons in man's world even before the King run. So it's not necessarily a King thing.
What I'm saying is that they had already known of, they felt comfortable enough to go to man's world, you know, in the first place and live there. So it's like, okay, so what is Diana's mission?
Not,
She is the one that's supposed to be the bridge and to bring the Amazons there. Um, in Perez Run and Post Crisis, the Amazons didn't come to man's world, didn't feel comfortable until the embassy with Diana, you know. So, and in New 52, I mean, it was only Diana and Hesha that was there. Even though the Amazons went back and forth with, what they did, it's still they didn't feel comfortable being, on in America like that. They still remained on the island. So honestly, this whole retcon or whatever was rebirthing a lot of Wonder Woman's present day problems stem from rebirth.
Exactly. So then we get to Red Sonja, who's the warrior survivor. Now, again, a really cool thing about Sonya is like, and it's sort of an inspiring thing about her is like, yeah, she doesn't like, she's the example of like fighting through trauma. In many ways, you know what? It just clicked on me. Red Sonja is kind of the fusion of Diana and Jessica Cruz.
That's interesting.
Essentially, with the whole trauma, with the whole overcoming trauma thing. And they have done a lot with this character. She's even like traveled to the future of the Marvel universe and hung out with Spider-Man. They're always crossing her over with stuff. And she's been like a lot of stuff, a gladiator. She's even been a general. She's led people into battle. And her whole thing is that she's very much onto being honorable. And there was this one storyline I was reading where she actually like accidentally killed someone that was trying to like seduce her. And then she got cursed. And then it's like she literally became a werewolf.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually really cool. It's a recent Red Sonja story I read. Now, it's like she's more... The other thing about Sonja is that she, as opposed to Diana being the, as you so elegantly called her in Special Bond, she's a social butterfly. Sonja tends to like stick by her own most of the time. Sure, there are moments where she like hangs out with Conan and they have their obvious sexual tension. You'll see that there's one trade where literally Conan is coming back. He's got a girl on each arm. He enters his hotel room and there's like Sonja just laid out on the bed. And she goes, "Oh, I thought I'd surprise you." And then Conan literally shoos the other women away and goes, "Consider myself surprised." It's so funny. I love it. But and it's like, but the thing about it is like, yeah, Sonja. The thing about it is like, I don't think Conan ever like actually beat Sonja in combat, so there is that. But it's like all really Sonja is just trying to be is a survivor, and you say it so well here, and it's like that's the difference. And it's like, but the thing about Sonja, she does have her moments where she's empathetic or like more like, I hesitate to say kind, but yeah, I'll say it, kind like Diana.
Yeah, and we definitely need, again, it is more of the circumstances than anything. Also, I think that since I am catching up so fast with um Green Lantern,
Mm-hmm.
then this would definitely be, I'll probably end up doing a double review because now I want to review some Red Sonja.
I
Uh,
gotcha. I'll make your reading list. I have a couple in my in my library that I think are really good. But yeah, she's one of those characters that depending on the writer, she could be like very in many ways like Diana. Her characterization is hyper dependent on the writer. Like Gail Simone did. So you know how Becky Cloonan wanted Diana to be a party girl?
yeah,
That was Gail Simone's Red Sonja. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Gail Simone still had some pretty cool storylines. I'm not going to say it was all bad, but there were a few things in there where I'm like, this is just not Sonja. I'm not a big fan of that.
right.
But anyway, so then you get to the moral philosophy, and Diana's whole like ideology is it's just 100% truth, love, equality, peace. The thing is, with any ideology or any ideals, you have to be willing to fight for it, and fighting could take many different forms, as in the case of like debates or arguments, and that's where Diana's diplomacy. But occasionally, it's gonna require a sword,
Right.
and that's the part of it that I always felt like some writers, mainly one that's may or may not be writing the book right now, really doesn't get. It's like No, it's not a contradiction. All it is, it's like, look, it's like you have to be willing to fight for your ideals. If you're not willing to do that, or if you have a problem with that, then that's a you problem.
Right. The only contradiction of Diana is having her romance Steve.
Oh yeah, that very much is that is very much a contradiction, particularly to who Diana is. Oh, and trust me, the Tom King run is very much that over the contradiction. But it's like she essentially teaches humanity like peace, all those ideals, and they've actually played around in the comics with this of like even some in Man's World thinking, oh yeah, she's like brainwashing our kids. I mean, I think this was a plot line in the Rucker run after she wrote the book, where it's like, oh, she's trying to teach our kids to be degenerates and such. But it's like, and of course, I felt that was actually really realistic to what would happen if Diana really existed. But it's like the thing is like, as opposed to Injustice Diana, you notice Diana never tries to force someone to feel a certain way. It's always, no, they have to choose this, or they have to do this of their own volition.
Right.
Again, unless someone drastically misunderstands the character.
Right.
But and then you also have like the Marston version, because essentially was Marston's idea a female Superman?
Not so much as just female Superman in that sense. It was, his quote is for her to be as strong as him, to have the strength, to be his equal, because the quote, let me get the quote. Let's see.
I think it was like someone equal in strength to Superman, but more like motherly or something like that.
Hold on. Yeah, it was something. Let's see. Okay, so Marston's quote is, "Women's strong qualities have become despised because of their weakness." And it's basically, again, as I said earlier, women are stereotyped to be dainty, to be, these den mother figures, not so much as motherly, because you can have that nurturing, you know, feel, but the den mother that, you're supposed to coddle men and things like that, that is a no-go. But, or you need to be rescued and things like that, that is very much seen as the expectation, and women who are beautiful and maybe they do act dainty sometimes, but that doesn't mean I can't hold my own. I'm not independent, or,
Yeah.
I don't have a certain physical strength. No, that doesn't mean that. So he goes on to say, the obvious remedy is to create a feminine character with all the strength of Superman, plus the allure of a good and beautiful woman. So he's basically saying the physical strength of Superman, but she is this.
But she's hot.
Well, you would say it in a male term.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, but still.
Yeah, I'm only kidding, of course, but yeah, it's essentially that, and it's like the other thing that's actually really, and say what you want about that 2017 movie, but you notice that Diana wants to get involved the minute she hears about innocence being threatened. This goes to your bottom points, and it's like she's basically, in many ways, you can actually think about her as fighting defensively, because she's fighting to defend people. And everything that she does is in the defense of others. It's not necessarily like she just goes, okay, I'm going to go fight this person for no reason, unless I'm written by Tom King. But it's more like I'm going to fight them because taking care of this threat, hopefully non-lethally, will lead to like safety and security for innocent people.
Right.
That's essentially what they do. And then you get to Red Sonja's ideology, which is very much similar, because again, it's more of like strength, independence, honor, and revenge. Everyone except revenge you can really attribute to Diana as well, unless you're Tom King. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if King is just forcing Red Sonja's personality onto Diana, but butchering it. Because I'm sorry, Red Sonja is the type to make the sovereign carve liar on his chest.
Probably so. Probably so.
Yeah, but it's like I like how she to your point, she's not trying to change the world. She's just trying to survive, and that in and of itself is great because even when she tries to survive, she puts herself in harm to save people. So, very much so, I wouldn't exactly call Red Sonja a hero or like even an anti-hero because anti-hero, some at least the way the modern day kind of uses that term, anti-heroes are kind of more of like the bad guys, more aligned with the bad guys. I would kind of say that she is more of like in between the two. I don't know what the term would be.
Um, yeah, the only thing that's coming up to me is an anti-hero, but as you explained, she's not. So, I mean, a vigilante. Yeah.
Vigilante, we can kind of say because she doesn't really have loyalty to any one government or system. So that actually works. And yeah, she does challenge tyrants and stuff when they like get in her way. And she's known as like the red-headed she-devil with a sword. So it's like she's known. It's known you don't mess with Sonja.
Right.
So I really dig that, and it's like she is more of the look. The way it kind of works is like she's more of like the world is cruel and no one's going to fight for these people. So I guess I might as well do that. So I really dig how a lot of writers have written Red Sonja really well in that way. So then we get to the narrative role that each plays in their universe. So Britt, take it off.
Yeah. So again, Wonder Woman is the in-betweener. She is the bridge of, the mythological, the I wouldn't say so much as magic in that way. Maybe more of the spirituality and the modern world. I can't stand when they try to force Diana into wartime because that's just not her. She is supposed to be um, come to man's world in the modern present day. So yeah, she will be young as however old she may be, 19 or so. But again, she is supposed to be that bridge. She is supposed to be the diplomatic representative of the mascara to help her sisters trust the outside world. They do have the mascara as, again, it's not so much as a utopia, but it is so much better with being family oriented because the Amazons are family. They
Yeah.
are mothers and sisters in that sense. They do have um, lovers on the island, except for Diana, of course, because she is the
Mm-hmm.
baby. But they have their just that community. So Diana, she has had experience as any other person. It's just she's on an island full of women. That's it is what it is. She is a founding member of the Justice League. I mean, it all depends on the era, of course, that you prefer. Um, if if we do go in modern terms of New 52, she was a founding member. If we go with George Perez, post-crisis, she wasn't. She was the youngest of the Justice League. But still, even if whether she is the founder or not, she is still um, iconic, of course, and she is supposed to have respect.
Yeah, it's in most versions of the what's the word of the Justice League. She is a founding member, especially today.
Right. And she also is supposed to be the moral compass for, the heroes. She very much so um has been the moral compass for Superman, mostly. She does help. I think it's more telling than showing with other heroes, but she is there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in many ways she has grown into the way of like the mom of the Justice League, and that Superman's the dad. It's kind of funny how those roles even when they're not together, they end up having the mom and dad role. That is really funny.
But I mean, I don't really necessarily like to put them in that role unless it is in the setting of Kingdom Come.
Which, yeah, and it's but again, Britt, a lot of people don't understand what Kingdom Come is. So there you go.
True, true.
Then we get to Red Sonja, and yeah, so she is more of the drifter that helps people when they come across like things that need helping. She has killed monsters, tyrants, kings, whatever, what have you. There's a lot of stuff, and her stories are very like action packed and brutal, as you can tell by a couple of the choice covers and panels and art that I have selected here. And it's very much like she is, and you actually summarize it perfectly. She exists in a world where strength determines fate. It's very much like aligning with like where like power is all that matters in the world. But with her, it's not necessarily, in many ways, Britt, actually, she is in like her world, she is the champion of the oppressed.
Right. I mean, you don't have a choice here that you have to be strong to survive.
Yeah, exactly. And but again, the people that like say she is just this like warrior don't really understand that.
I mean, you can give a comic book or anything to some people, and they just refuse to look beyond what little they've read. It can be right in their face, and they still want to look at certain characters or storylines or whatever at surface level.
Oh, trust me, Britt. Wait, comic book fans are surface level? I would have never known that. Wow, I never would have known that. So that's the thing about Red Sonja. She is very much like yeah, she's a mercenary, but she's one of those good mercs. You know how whenever I know the term mercenary kind of gets like a bad rap, but you know how there was always that one merc that like will act like they don't care, but will later come back and help people. She's that.
That's a good way to describe her. Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing is, think about it this way. If you take her origin into account, maybe she pushes people away because she feels that like everyone dies around her. Because remember, her whole family and tribe were killed.
Right. True.
Which is probably why she hangs out with Conan, because Lord help the poor soul that decides to come at Conan the Barbarian. They call him Barbarian for a reason. So then we get to the symbolism of Diana, and it's like, but a lot of ways, both characters probably have this of being like the feminist icon. Sonja's more of the like fighter as an icon, and Diana's more of like the peaceful thing. Which again, it really annoys me whenever I'm watching the DC documentary and they get to that part where Diana was made an honorary UN ambassador, and some Karens were so upset, and they were like, "Yeah, but she wears a bikini, and she wears like a bathing suit," and I go, can you not have a surface level idea of the character for 5 minutes?
Right.
Like, what in the name of... I don't understand this. She literally just promotes equality and peace between men and women, understanding each other. That's also why, if you notice, the lasso of truth allows her to communicate with people in different languages. So it's like it's forming connections between people. Isn't that what you people at the UN literally do all day?
Exactly. But, those superficial, ways of looking at Diana. And again, digging deep into Marston's personal life, really, I think that is what is harmful for Diana, because with seeing him as her creator and thinking that, and also reading earlier Golden Age and what that, what was implemented within those stories, yeah, you would think that that is Diana's character. But no, she is more than that. She has evolved. She is about liberation. She is about sex positiveness. She is about, being free with whatever your sexual orientation is supposed to be.
Yeah, you be
Um,
you.
you know, exactly. And she is about, but she's also about loving, culture and all culture and respecting culture, So yeah, is again, she's a very multifaceted, very complex character, but I blame Diana's the misinterpretations or, things like that on some of Marston's elements and just DC's mishandling, period.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where it's like in a lot of ways with Dispatch when people were like so determined that Blonde Blazer was evil because one of the reasoning, Brit, was that there's no way anyone can be this good. There must be a catch. And that's a lot of ways with Diana. It's like there's no way anyone could be this peaceful. She go look at where she comes from.
Right, right.
So I'm like, again, you guys really don't understand this. Then you get to Red Sonja, and again, it's like resilience and it's like perseverance. That's why I equate her in many ways to Jessica Cruz, because when you look at Jessica's origin, it's very much like aligned with that whole you can overcome trauma in order to like what's the word? In order to be able to overcome it, in other words. And there's in a lot of ways, it's like not a lot of writers really get that or like understand that. Which here's the thing, you don't even have to be a woman to understand this. Just gone through any amount of difficulty in anyone's life. Everyone has gone through a difficult time in their life. I get anyone that says no is lying. So it's like literally all you need to do is like overcome that. There's also independence and just being a warrior. Now, being a warrior can manifest in a lot of different ways. You can be a warrior for like a cause, a warrior to protect people. It's like too many people also think that like being a warrior automatically means no, you got to be like actually like in combat, and that's not. That's a part of it, but it's not all of it.
Right.
But it's like, again, too many creators really don't understand that, or they have a very simplistic like way of doing this. And it's like, that's why it's like, that's why people have not only a surface level understanding of Diana, but a surface level understanding of Red Sonja, because yes, she is like way more violent than Diana is, again, as in the case of the covers, but she also has a lot of moments where you get to see the woman beneath the warrior.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, again, Britt, this is the other reason I wanted to do this comparison, because Wonder Woman gets accused of being a warrior, so does Sonja.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get to the key similarities. So Britt, tell us about the key similarities.
Okay, so obviously they do have their differences, but the similarities, again, as we talked about their origin and how they do, in a sense, come from tragedy. Diana, she is that miracle child for Hippolyta, but it's the fact that Diana still carries her mother's trauma and, well, all of her sisters, and that's what gives her motivation. While with Red Sonja, her motivation is her own trauma of seeing, herself and her family be murdered and the abuse and, the violation. So that becomes her motivation. You also have that, I mean, the most you could say, and it's very surface level of them being, these skilled warriors, um, in combat, but that, to me, that doesn't really say much about them. What you really focus on is the fact that these two come from, basically man's world's violence.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, again, here's the other similarity. They both operate in very violent worlds. Granted, Diana is, by comparison, I think Diana's in a much more peaceful world than Sonja, and that should tell you something. but it's like they both approach it in very similar ways.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying is that,
Hmm.
I would say Red Sonja, she had it firsthand. Diana, she's more of the secondhand, you know.
Hmm.
It's that Hippolyta with telling Diana how she felt or what she dealt with knowing the Amazon's history is what she carries with her. Um, and yeah, they are these powerful, female fantasies, in that sense. But to me, again, if you want Red Sonja, I guess, to be sexualized, it's very easy that both characters are over sexualized. That's
Well,
true.
it's very easy for Sonya considering what she wears in a combat.
Right. I mean, Diana too, with the bodysuit and, the 90s Wonder Thong, that. But overall, if you don't look at them in a surface level type way, then honestly, again, you have that spiritual connection.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So then you get to the big. What's the big distinction, Britt?
Well, obviously, Diana is not happy-go-lucky with sword.
Oh yeah.
um, she is the servant for peace, Diana. Um, and again, the Amazon and her way of thinking is built on the wisdom of Athena. Athena is the goddess of war in that sense, and strategy. But Diana takes that blessing, and she essentially turns it upside down. That while she's strategic, she looks for a better way to not have war or battle at all. That again, that is something that she wants as her last resort. While Red Sonja, she still, um, well, as you said earlier, in order for her to have been, romantically involved or something like that, she had to be defeated.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly, and that's the thing about it, and that's part of why Sonya like became one of the best like swords women in the world because she never wants to like she obviously she wants it to be like her choice essentially. So I do really like that like she like she like goes through that and like she puts in the work to like train and be like a like combat person and the thing about it it's and you actually summarized it perfectly. Diana sees the sword as more like a tool, but like Sonya is that it's like so it's like they have a very like different view of violence, let me put it to you that way.
Exactly, exactly.
Which and again, it's not a dig against Sonya or anything like that. It's like they're different characters. So then we get to the industry impact of Wonder Woman and Red Sonja.
Okay, so both are very iconic. They are the female warriors, whichever way you want to look at it in a superficial way or a deep dive, of what that means as a warrior. Um, they they do have a very different relationship with publication. Of course, Red Sonja is the like premier female character for Dynamite, and they do, uh, I guess, from what you've said, Jared, is that they treat her very well, while DC continues to struggle with Diana.
Yeah, oh yeah, trust me, exactly. But yeah, they definitely continue to struggle. And here's the thing, and you guys in the comments can like let me know what are some of the worst Red Sonja runs. I want to know that because it's like I don't hear a lot of like complaining when it comes to Sonja having bats. It's probably because in many ways Sonja is the Batman of Dynamite, considering that she is their golden goose. So when you think about it, that could be like why, and they're very protective of her, which rightly so. So I kind of understand that. That's interesting the way that's an interesting way to think about it.
True. I mean, even if you look at Diana as part of the Trinity honestly is a very it's it has lost its meaning, for what the concept is supposed to be. So I don't even know honestly if to continue on with mentioning, the Trinity concept and everything because it has not benefited Diana at all. While Red Sonja went from Marvel to Dynamite, she actually got the upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like it's now again because I've had people ask me, being that like if Diana was with a different company, then all of a sudden she'd be treated better. No, it does not mean that.
No, it doesn't.
Because here's the problem with that, Britt. We could get a publisher. You want to talk about Red Sonja being overly sexualized? Oh,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, they would. To keep Diana for more or less pure, she has to stay with DC. She just has to.
Right.
But unfortunately, so as frustrating as that is, Diana being under DC is kind of like the best scenario, honestly.
It's the lesser of the evils, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to the cultural impact on fans. I'm sure Wonder Woman has the most positive fan base in the world, Britt. I'm sure of it. I love that silence. Whenever I say something and Britt has that really like long pause, I feel like she's judging me.
I'm side-eyeing you to the core. Yes.
Yes, I know. But go on.
But for the most part, of course, Wonder Woman, her fans, and it is supposed to be positive. But of course, we don't get that positivity. And as of late, or since again, I would say the whole toxic nature has escalated since Rebirth. So the fandom is divided, or I mean, they have come together on the wrong circumstances because of the hate, towards DC, Tom King's run, and the lack of respect Diana's getting, So while it's understandable, it's still that there is some positivity within this character. And not everybody reads comics. So outside of that, even if it is just merch or whatever, like a t-shirt or something like that, you still have Wonder Woman in the positive way. And you still have young women and uh, older women, very much gravitating to her character.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's really important. And it's like, that's the thing about Diana is, and this is, so Sonja is relatively mainstream, but she's only mainstream because when you mention Red Sonja, they're like, oh, she's the redhead in the bikini, right? But it's like, obviously it takes someone actually researching and understanding the character. But it's like with Diana, the thing about Diana that's interesting when you think about it is like, and this is the way you get people to identify with a character, and this is the problem that Marvel ran into. One of the things I've always said about Marvel, and the reason why the X-Men work so well, is because to make people like identify with the characters, you give them a pathos that everyone agrees with, being othered and such. And with Diana, you give her universal ideals that everyone ideally should believe in. So at the very least, if you believe in like equality among the genders, you can go with Diana.
Exactly. I mean, at the very least.
Yeah, at the very least. Who knows here? But whoever knows with the way the thing works. And then you have like some fans debate, and the sad part about the debate around Diana is, and Britt, how many times do we see the fan base having a stupid argument on who Diana sleeps with?
About 100 times a day,
Yeah,
every
exactly.
single day.
Exactly. Exactly. That's where I'm like, oh God. Or it's like all of a sudden, or it's like all of a sudden they'll turn on a writer, or like, and there will be some writers, let's be clear, that like maybe I liked previously, but maybe I didn't like their work. With the Azzarello run, I still like it, but it's been retconned so much that I really just consider it a self-contained Elseworlds take because it was so isolated. That's the advantage of Azzarello's book, treating Diana like she was on her own world, because excuse me, you can treat it like that. Whereas opposed some runs are like really integrated into the DC universe that you really can't. But it's like the way I kind of approach it is like it's like there are some writers that are doing storylines that it's like here's the thing, and this is another pitfall a lot of writers run into, and this is why with the Tom King run, no matter what you think about it, it won't be remembered. Here's why: because when you deal with the Tom King run, it's dealing with that's why you should never make the central point of your run and a particular political issue or something like that, because guess what happens? That the minute that issue goes out of like fashion, your run is now irrelevant, and then like down the line, like let's say 5-10 years down the line, or even really like 2 years, no one's gonna remember it.
I mean, no one remembers that run, even now. You know,
Well,
that is, yeah.
Well, it's because most people that actually understand Wonder Woman are boycotting the book. So anyway, then you get to Red Sonja, and it's like, so yeah, she have her first comic book appearance at Marvel. I picked that
Which
up
is
at
really interesting.
I picked it up at a comic book store. I think they had it like I want to say it was like for $10, and I was like, oh, okay. So I picked that up, and it was so. Here's the thing: it's like there is a Red Sonja character, its own YA in Robert E. Howard's like Hyborian Age Conan books. But it's like this is very much a different character, where it's like she's an independent character. She's a warrior. It's very, very fantasy. Now, Britt, tell us about the impact that Red Sonja had on the fans.
Okay, so the sword and sorcery fantasy, the brutal action, you having this strong female character, that is something that, you know, does have interest. And yeah, it is the way she dresses. She doesn't so much as have that impact or that outlook that Diana has, but it's just the fact that she is the one character that fits that more so male fantasy of a female character, warrior character. But yeah, she's definitely just fitting for the fantasy.
And by the way, here you go.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I picked this up at like one of the comic book stores I go to. It's from 1975.
Wow.
So it's like as far as comics, that's where she comes from, and she started with Marvel. And then you get to the publishing history and ownership, because with Wonder Woman, she's the icon that DC doesn't treat like she's an icon, because that's the thing about her. It's like they treat her like she's a member of the Trinity, but they don't do anything with her being a member of the.
They don't treat her as a member of the Trinity. Not really.
Well, what I mean is, like, ostensibly for marketing purposes, they say she's a member of the Trinity. But even though you and I know, Britt, that the Trinity is a very superficial concept, the point is, it's like they treat her like she is this big character, which she is. Well, no. They claim she is this big character, which she is, but they don't treat her as such. And I'm like, by that, again, she shouldn't be the book you put junior editors on to train them. Yes, that is very true. That according to a former DC Comics editor, that's what she turned into. And that's what the book was.
And that's really, honestly, that says more about the creatives than, again, the character herself. Because if you can't, have stories with her, I mean, we make up stories every other day for her.
Literally every, every day. Literally every day.
Because the character is so much to be said with her character.
And if you know, it's not, this is why, again, anyone that tells you that Diana is hard to write for is lying. Because you can apply, there's an infinite number of stories you can do as long as you respect who she is as a character. So if you don't respect who she is as a character, of course it's hard to come up with stories for her.
Exactly.
And that's the big thing. That's why, that's why, again, I say, anyone that says, oh, Diana's really hard to write, or Clark is hard to write, really doesn't understand the character they're trying to write, which is even more concerning. And it's so then you have for DC, the DC brand recognition part, Britt, that's why DC will never acknowledge Diana being bi, despite what Greg Rucka will say, because here's the thing, the minute they do that, that severely limits the countries that they can sell her merch and show her movies in.
True.
And let's be honest, it's Rucka would turn every female character into a lesbian.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and also remember, it's isn't it like he says he's a spiritual lesbian? So I'm so you're a straight man.
Right.
Am I understanding that right? Because it's by that logic, I'm a spiritual lesbian. Am I understanding this correctly?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay, so as far as I know, he identifies as a man that is into women. Well, there was a term for that. Wait, no, he's a dude that identifies as a woman that's attracted to women.
Honestly, I just think he's using that so he can get away with any type of, fantasies that he has.
Well, remember, he wrote that Lois Lane book where all of a sudden Lois is aware of the multiversal reboots. Not only that, Britt, and this is the part that annoyed the crap out of Robert, it's halfway through that book, it just becomes Renee Montoya book.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of sad and embarrassing that even Rucka, with all of his, Lois must be protected, she is the best, yet her solo book couldn't even last, 12 issues or 6 issues even, because halfway through you turned her book into another character's book.
Yeah, I remember because again, there was this period, Britt, where I would be browsing through DC Infinite and just going, okay, so I'm gonna pick a random series and read it. I saw Lois Lane, and this is around the time that I was forming my very reasonable opinions about this woman. So I was okay, so let me read this. So I'm reading through it. It's the regular cringe stuff, and then all of a sudden, she takes a backseat to my Renee Montoya, and I'm what happened?
What's funny to me is that Rucka made a big fuss about, Lois being just Superman's wife or girlfriend or something. But yet he writes her as just that. So why did Superman have to be in the book? And I think he was in...
You know why, Britt? Because no one would buy the book if Superman never showed up.
I mean, no one bought the book in the first place.
True.
Whether he was in the book or not. But I'm just saying that you can't make a big fuss about her obvious role, but yet you want her to stay in a stagnant marriage, that doesn't really benefit either character, especially Lois, because she is supposed to be the doting wife. Rebirth had her baking pie, and she is supposed to agree with Clark and be that waiting woman that um she's not meek, but at the same time she just doesn't challenge Clark at all, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Um
At all.
so she's just that, and they don't have conflicts as a couple, it's just there, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's like they're the happy-go-lucky couple that nothing bad ever happens to.
right. So I would say that just her whole um story or character all this time has really suffered. But yeah, Rucka's whole thing, you know, whatever he writes is very much, it just has a lot of mean spiritedness to it. His writing, I don't know what it is, but it just seems so mean spirited when he, you know, writing Wonder Woman, especially Wonder
Exactly.
Woman.
Exactly. So then you get to Red Sonja. I love how you call it a traveling license because that's so true. Oh
I
my gosh.
mean, she definitely is, you know, with going from Marvel to Dynamite and soaring, you know, a lot of times characters would um end up in a pitfall, you know, um or in the pit, you know, when things get shuffled around.
Yeah, and luckily, it's a testament to the character that she hasn't like fallen into like irrelevancy, probably because of her costume again. But I'll talk about a little bit of that when we get to the movie. But in the Marvel era, she was like connected to Conan because this is around the time that Marvel had the license for Conan. I think Dark Horse has the one to Conan now. That's why they don't. That's why it's very rare for them to do crossovers. They did it once, and that was like a very special book. But this is when she became like the big supporting character for Conan, and then she would later have her own like series. However, again, to your point, Marvel was just licensing the character; they didn't own it because Marvel at the time did a ton of license comics. Like one of the things they did, they published the original Star Wars comics before the movie came out. They did G.I. Joe, they did Transformers. Marvel was like really big into licensing comics around this time period. And then I guess that they didn't have anything else to do with the character. So they just decided to like move on. If anyone knows the story, they can drop in the comments as well. But so then you get to the Dynamite era, which is where she is now. And the thing about Dynamite as opposed to Marvel is Dynamite is not like as beholden to ratings as Marvel is. Because with Dynamite, you can go case in point, Britt, Dynamite published the Boys comics.
I'm very much aware.
Yeah, so I bring that up because it's the idea that like that's like she's not being censored. In other words, you can have a scene of her like chopping off heads or like decapitating freaking dragons. Yes, that happens. In order for like her to like have like in order for her to like really do stories. And she regularly has her own series. The one I'm currently reading right now is that there's this woman that gets transported into so Sonya's dead, but then this woman from like our world is transported to Hyboria into her body, and essentially it's like she is Red Sonja, and it's like maybe Sonya's coming back to life. So that's really cool. And she regularly crosses over with like a lot of other Dynamite projects like Vampirella. And occasionally, like we saw in KO, she will like hang out with like DC characters. And I think it was in this period where she crossed over with Spider-Man, and it was revealed that Mary Jane Watson was a descendant of Red Sonja. They purely did that just because of the color of her hair, Britt. They purely did that.
I figured that. I figured as much, and that is okay. Okay.
And the funny part is like Dynamite knows that she is their cash cow, and they lean into it as opposed to like DC with Marvel. You say it in here. It's like Red Sonja is the big character, and maybe Vampirella is also up there, obviously. But she is again, she is the Batman of Dynamite, and that she is their creme de la creme character. And it's like, I don't think Dynamite lets well, it's like the thing where like with DC with Wonder Woman, she could easily be the top character, but again, DC just treats him more as an obligation and not as an actual character. And you cannot have a healthy editorial character in like that. But speaking of editorial, and I'm sure that editorial with Wonder Woman has been all puppies and rainbows, right?
Sure it has. Sure it has.
And by the way, what does it say that the Wonder Woman from hell is more peaceful than regular Wonder Woman?
I mean, honestly, the only reason why Absolute Wonder Woman is peaceful is because Kelly Thompson said that she couldn't write Diana any other way. At that point, it would be a different character, and the I would say the premise of Absolute was supposed to have the world darker, but not necessarily the characters darker. I mean, well, yeah, they were, but weren't. You know, I would say except for Batman. Because Scott Snyder, he loves his horror. He loves his. Well, I don't know if he is an actual fan, but the Michael Bay, Frank Miller, combination there. I would say that's the only character and book that is supposed to just be dark and edgy and everything like that. But Absolute Wonder Woman was supposed to be the goddess of war. And she is supposed to have, this mean streak. She was supposed to be a brute. She was supposed to be just a borderline evil, I think. Not so much as Kratos, but well, yeah, probably essentially female Kratos turned up a notch. With New 52, again, she was very mellow unless you read John version of her. But yeah, the whole thing about Absolute is the fans need to realize that her personality is because of the main verse. It's not the other way around. It's not that Absolute was created as this brand new character. No, that is mainline Diana, just in red and black. And yeah, she was raised in hell. But the only reason why Absolute is getting that sort of praise is because her mainline book is in the gutter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But now here's the thing, though. It was a good option to go with the let's just make her regular Diana because Britt, do we really need another evil Diana?
That's true. I mean, yeah.
That's
Thankfully,
why. That's why when he even to be quite honest, when you even say that she's basically just a clone of like regular Diana, the reason why I'm fine with that is because again the alternative is just Injustice Wonder Woman.
exactly. I'm pretty sure we were going to have her as Injustice. Like, yeah, she was going to be Injustice hybrid with um, Flashpoint and Kratos and Ares mixed.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm like, thank you, Kelly Thompson, for just saying, I'm just going to do regular Diana. And you know what? The sales tell us this was a good idea. But regardless, so then we're going to get to like, so the thing about Diana is like, you also have some writers want her to be perpetually the fish out of water. Like there was a storyline. Actually, no, it was during the period where she was a Department of Meta-Human Affairs thing after she killed Maxwell Lord. She didn't know how to pump gas. And Britt, this is the woman that had been a fry cook in this same continuity.
That is the same thing that Starfire fans are dealing with. That writers are being influenced by the cartoon, so they are writing Starfire with the same dialect as the cartoon version, and just how she acts, as that fish out of water, even though she's been in man's world or on Earth for well, I don't really know how long Starfire has been, but it's just the fact that I'm pretty sure she's old enough to have adapted, to Earth and and things like that, the way she speaks. So with Diana not being able to pump gas, I mean, Diana doesn't have to because she flies, or she might be in someone else's car. You know, Julia, I think in Perez Run always, drove the car. I don't think we've ever seen Diana drive, but
Oh,
I would
that
think
would be
that,
honestly, I want that as like a backup story because that would be hilarious. Diana learning to drive, and there's Clark in the car, and he goes, and he's like holding on, and she goes, "You're invulnerable," and he goes, "Yeah, but I don't need you broadcasting that to everyone."
I mean, it would be really cute that Julia is, teaching Diana and Vanessa how to drive at the same time. That's really sweet.
And by Britt, that legit gives me an idea.
Of course it did.
Yeah, and it's like so. Then we get to the overemphasis on the warrior, and again, I think that Absolute Wonder Woman. I'm going to bring this up, and that's why I have an image of Absolute Diana here. Gets this balance so well because Diana goes into warrior mode when she needs to, but it's like even when in the most recent issue when she's fighting like Giganta and the others, the way Diana works as a warrior is she only uses the force proportionate to, for lack of a better term, neutralizing the threat. Now, neutralizing doesn't just mean killing the threat. It just means making it so they're not going to be able to hurt anyone else. So it could be they're knocked out or anything like that. So it's like when you have like writers that just interpret that, oh, so that means she's just a fighter now, right? Right? And I'm like, no,
Right.
definitely not. But and it's like I do miss the period where she was an ambassador, and that's the thing. Reading a bunch of the post-crisis omnibi really taught me. It's like I really liked that like time period where like they really weighed in on her being a diplomat. Because say what you want, Brit, about like Rucka and Jimenez post-crisis. Rucka, I have to say post-crisis with that. Jimenez, Simone, and well, actually, not necessarily Simone because that was after she lost the embassy. It was mainly, I think it was Byrne, Rucka, and Jimenez, right? Did the embassy?
Um, it Roca and Jimenez.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's like say what you want about Rucka and Jimenez. At the very least, they did some really genius stuff with that.
I wouldn't say genius. I mean, they acknowledged it.
Well, let me put it this way: at the very least, they put it to work. And they incorporated it into the story because that's something that's very important for Diana.
Okay, true.
So then you get to neglecting her supporting cast. Hell yeah, because it's like, remember when King was coming on the book and he goes, I do not want to, I don't want to have the Wonder Girls or the gods or anything like that. And it's like, then why are you writing Wonder Woman?
But also now we know why. It's because he wanted the book solely to be focused on his OCs and Steve.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, it's like, it's like the other thing, it's like, I have a theory, Britt, with that. You know how he writes the Wonder Girl so terribly? How much would I bet he originally had different Amazons, like he made up 3 Amazons in the book that were going to be Diana's partners. But then when he was forced to use the Wonder Girls, he just Command F'd and changed the name.
Oh, jeez. That makes things worse. And it does actually make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the part that I came to that like epiphany around the time that he had Donna like gut Solomon Grundy, and it's like he turned the Latina Wonder Girl into the swearing one, and I go, how is that? How is that not being constantly blasted and called racist? And I mean, beyond our circle of friends.
Right. I mean, there's so much wrong with that. I don't know. I can't believe it's actually being published.
But luckily, as we know, they'll just ignore it when the next writer comes on.
True.
Because again, Britt and I have heard from certain DC writers that, and I'm not naming names, but Britt and I have heard from DC people that the internal conversations about Tom King's Wonder Woman are not good, right?
Right. I would say that if you know that, then just as he was kicked off of Batman's book, then kick him off of this book.
I think what they're doing with this, Britt, is because there's going to be a future element in time travel. How much you want to bet he said, "Okay, I'm going to use time travel. Just I'll undo it, but at least let me tell the story first, and I'll use time travel to undo it."
Well, sure, but it's still a waste of time. So.
Oh yeah, it's still horrible, but I'm like, but it's like, and now here's the thing, Britt. Because the lack of media outside of the things like animated series, video games, and films, that's not necessarily DC's fault. It also has to do with the Marston contract, where they have to approve literally everything that's not a comic book with Wonder Woman. And the problem with that, now it has saved us from crap adaptations, but the problem is how many good adaptations has that left? And then it's like, then you have the example of the Wonder Woman game where no work was done on that. Then you have the animated series that James Gunn claims he's working on, but I highly doubt that.
Right.
But it's like, we'll see what happens. And it's she needs that one cultural moment like the first movie, and we'll talk about that in a future slide. But so then you get to Red Sonja's publishing challenges and the over-sexualized marketing. I'm like, yeah, that's the thing, because you want to balance it, but you don't want to over-sexualize her. But then again, look at what she wears into combat, Britt.
I mean, yeah, that is the thing with her. It's just that you can go overboard. It just all depends on the artist that's chosen, and the story itself. But other than that, I mean, it makes sense for her character because of who her character is, as far as what she wears. But in the context of what she went through, yeah, it's kind of clashing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of the genre, the thing about the genre is it's you could the problem that you run into with the genre is that when it comes to Sonja, you make a great point here. The sword and sorcery genre is going in and out of cultural relevance constantly, so you really have to be at that right moment in order to nail it. And
exactly, kind of like the Masters of the Universe movie, live action movie.
Well, with that one, that's the thing, because with that, Masters of the Universe is more on the superhero side, and you still have that futuristic tech thing. So you could align that. So that's easier to hit the cultural zeitgeist than let's say Red Sonja, which is pure fantasy.
I see. Mm-hmm.
But you make a great point though. But so then you get to the fragmented publishing history with also with Red Sonja with that, and then you also have the company priorities, because DC, as I said before, DC doesn't treat Diana like the priority she should be. They definitely don't, because it's she's the most important female superhero. But you don't push for her to have all of these projects. You just don't.
I think it's because, honestly, yeah, it might be limitations because of the Marston estate and everything. But it's just that writers don't pitch a lot of things for Wonder Woman because they believe it's complicated, or that her character is complicated. Like how Tomasi, called her difficult and everything because she demands equal spotlight. Well, it's kind of like no shit, Sherlock, because.
But not only that, Britt, what does that say about the way he writes Lois then, when she's hanging out baking pies?
Right. That, that says a lot, that you are basically chauvinistic in the sense that women are better, you know, suited to be baking pies, waiting for the husband and the kids or whatever. That's how he presented Lois. But with Diana, she is right there, you know, in the fight, or she's the one leading the fight, or you know, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very like complicated like position that DC's really in. And again, when you deal with like all of her like other media and comic directions, like the thing is Wonder Woman needs a singular editorial group, like just for her. Like, don't lump her in with like Teen Titans or anything like that. No, you give her her own group, because that way you can get the people together, say, here's the story, here's what we're trying to tell. Go, be gone with you and do it.
Right.
Because that's the problem. When they announced that they were giving her her own editorial group, obviously all of us were like, okay, this could actually be really good. And then it's revealed that nothing in terms of editorial positions is going to change. And we're like, so nothing is changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so then we get to the Dynamite's approach for Red Sonja, which it's, again, she is very much like she is their Batman character, and she gets like all these, like, she gets multiple series, she gets everything going. She's very easy to market based upon her like outfit, and it's like because even if you have a superficial idea about Red Sonja, it's hot girl in a bikini wielding a sword. That's all. That is marketing gold, Britt. Gold. Because again, Britt, what's the majority of comic book readers?
Well, that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and also women like seeing hot girls as well. So it's like
Well, that's true. It is equal opportunity. That's true.
yeah, and then you have like you have all that, and then it's like to your point, it's like while obviously Sonya maybe doesn't sell as much as like Wonder Woman does and stuff. The thing about it, it's more her position in many ways. Her position with Dynamite is more meaningful than Diana is to Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, and then you really get to the core difference in publishing. Well, for one thing, Sonya has like different like series is launching oftentimes concurrently, where Diana only has one book, two if she's lucky, and then it's like with Sonya, she overshadows everyone else at Dynamite, not the other way around.
Exactly. Diana is supposed to, you know, within this massive company, um, the big two, and yes, DC is very much number two, regardless of um, Marvel's downfalls. She is still a prominent character. On her own, we're not um, mentioning the Trinity concept at all because it is faulty. Um, but she is overshadowed by, you know, Batman and Superman. Really, with Superman, she's used as a mouthpiece for the status quo. Um, that is just something I really just don't understand why, but I do, in the sense of Superman's status quo being this all-American family guy, you know, with Lois having a history of being jealous of Diana. So Diana, in turn, and especially when you have writers like Jurgens or Rucka, who, you know, hold on to the status quo of Clovis, and it is supposed to be this taboo or something forbidden for Diana to be in close proximity to Cal, you know, at certain points. Um, and you know, Rita Reamer's whole apology tour, quote unquote, of because of New 52, they took that opportunity to use Diana in that way for DCA, for Rebirth, and even in the Death of Superman companion comic, like it was non-issues, and it really was worthless, but they had to, you know, basically the whole revisionist thing. of
Oh yeah, and
BPA
people think that's part of the new 52 when it's
because
really not.
right, because they were wearing the New 52 outfits, but also, Screen Rant as a comic book um website, a very big website that people love to get information from. It's just so, you know, negligent to post inaccurate, articles.
You're trusting Screen Rant, wow, but you're
If
expecting Screen
anybody,
Rant to actually publish accurate information.
that's true. I mean,
There
they
are a few
haven't
writers, to be clear, on there that I trust and I like, but beyond that, it's like.
exactly right.
So, and then it's again, Sonja gets more stuff than Diana, and it's like it's not even close, honestly. So then you get to the live action movies, and again, this is what Diana needs. She needs another thing to get her that popularity that Sonja. Because again, people not liking Gal Gadot, I get it, but it's like you can't deny that Gadot brought her more relevance than she had in a long time. Because again, people act like, oh, the Linda Carter show came out and that made her relevant. When did that show come out?
In the 70s, yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to start with the 1985 Red Sonja movie. The next slide has the part of this movie that made me want to cheese grade my eyeballs. I'll explain this later.
Goodness.
I'll explain this later. But this is the movie, by the way, that killed the Conan the Barbarian movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what. Even though it wasn't technically part of Conan, even though that because Arnold does not play Conan in this movie, he plays a different character that's in the very Conan role of the franchise of it. And the thing about this movie, they actually do the assault part of Sonja's origin and all that stuff. So I'm like, I was very surprised, but then again, the 80s movies were more like fast and loose in that sense. But she does the whole revenge thing, and the reasons why it underperformed were weak script, inconsistent tone. Yeah, it went from dark to light constantly. And again, because Arnold was in it, they're like, that's not, he's not playing Conan. So here's the part that really annoys me, Britt. This MFer, the most annoying child ever in movies, because the story of this freaking brat is he is apparently this prince that's traveling around the universe, treating himself like he's above everyone else. So he's constantly like, "Oh, you must serve me, Sonja. You will be my wife when I grow up." And I'm like, shut this kid up. There was a certain point when I was watching this, watching this movie, because I had to watch it for movie night, where I was like, I was hovering over the skip scene with Kid button. I was going to fast forward through all those scenes because I was like, nope, I'm done. But I had to stick with it, Britt. I had to stick with it. This luckily he's more preferable to Trinity though. But there was a certain point where he's in danger, and I'm like, yes, finally take out this kid. He's so annoying. So anyway, so you have the fans like the aesthetic, and Bridget Nielsen was very much the more powerful character. The other thing is though, she doesn't have the bikini, and I think this was before. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was the 70s. So it's you do the movie where Sonja, but it's Red Sonja, but she doesn't have the iconic outfit for Sonja.
Oh, yeah, that would be a problem.
Now, again, I understand from a practical point of view, because there is the old concern of, oh, people are wondering, oh, would that over-sexualize Nielsen? And I'm like, okay,
exactly.
That's a concern. True. I got it. But it's then don't adapt the character, honestly, if you're not going to do that. That's the thing. You're adapting a character who goes into battle in a bikini.
Right. The number one thing is to make your, actress feel comfortable.
Yeah, but it's like if you're not, but it's like then don't adapt Red Sonja if you're going to avoid literally. That's like okay, so let's have Batman go into battle, but I don't think he should wear the bat suit. Let's have him go into battle in like khaki slacks and like a button-down shirt with a bat mask. No, I know. Do what the Gotham Knight show did, and just have it where Brit the bat suit is literally a tuxedo, but the dude's wearing essentially a Party City bat mask.
Wow.
That was literally that. And also, the Robin suit had no identification of Robin. And do you know where the Robin name came from in that freaking show?
Do I want to know?
Oh, be prepared to cringe. It was because, and so the Robin in the show is Carrie Kelly, like from Dark Knight Returns. She's called Robin because Batman called her his little Robin.
I mean,
I'm literally like, did no one read that back and realize what this makes Batman look like?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, no. But anyway, with Red Sonja, it's like the second one, the 2025 movie is way better because, yeah, they have a scene where they homage the bikini, and then even when she gets actual armor, it's still like bikini armor-ish. So, except it's like less sexualizing. Like they got a good like balance. So it's like the second one felt more like the comics Red Sonja as opposed to this, where I feel like they were trying to do the book Red Sonja when people knew Sonja because of the bikini outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Although in the movie, in the 2025 movie, they take out the whole assault thing and just make it so her family is still killed. She like hangs out in the woods, comes out able to swing a sword, and then she dies in the movie, and then is reborn by a goddess that tells her, okay, you will be like this great warrior and such. So they still play around with the lore, but it's stuff that like I can understand why modern Hollywood may not want to do the R word part of Sonja's backstory. Let's face it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I get it. So then we get to Wonder Woman 2017, the movie that helped catapult Wonder Woman into new cultural relevance, starring Gal Gadot. And again, this is the movie that was responsible for Wonder Woman getting all this push in 2017. Granted, it also contributed to Rucka's BS Rebirth run, but that's a cross to bear.
No, we ain't got to bear anything.
Well,
but
yeah, this also would have the negative impact of now all of a sudden Diana's ancient.
Oh yeah, I would say that even though she had the impact, it's still the long-term effects has really affected Diana in the worst way. From her being
why in the worst though?
From her being, forced to be ancient. Like again, Diana is supposed to be a bridge. How is she a bridge if she's set in wartime? And
but again,
of all this time of modern day, everything remains the same. More wars, more cultural division. As we saw in 1984, Diana did not do anything. She was sulking over Steve. She was saying that she was in the shadows or whatever, but Diana is not that character that is supposed to be in the shadows. Her motivation is not a man. Her motivation is her mother. Her motivation is her sisters and how she wants the world to come together. Even if it does take her a year or 10 years, it would not take her over 100 years though. And even if she was in man's world for wartime and then she goes back to Themyscira, why would she feel the need to go back to man's world and that just that experience of her, it just doesn't sit right. It doesn't.
But again,
you also have her obsessed with Steve. In order for Steve to be relevant, you have to have Diana's motivation and purpose. And even King said this. that he is the reason why she left the island. He is the reason why she is Wonder Woman, and that's
In this, they didn't do that though.
no. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it kind of gave that sort of feel, though, with Diana's humanity, how she walked away from humanity because of a man. So you come to that conclusion that the only reason why she cared, or the only reason why she, you know, became involved was because of Steve. And again, in 1984, it made it that too, that everything that she did, even for her ability to unlock to be able to fly, was because of Steve. Those things that is already something that she has. It was you take that and make it about a man, you know. And then with Rebirth, because of that synergy and because you have the audience in both ways of the source material and live action, you let the live action interpretation um bleed through the comics. So you think that, oh, this is within the source material, but you don't know. No, this is a retcon. So we go into Rucka's rebirth run and we see how Diana is guilt tripped because she was with someone else other than Steve. How he wrote her as that fish out of water. Even if she is more of the foreign girl with the certain accent and things like that, it was still made about Steve, and her acceptance, her whatever was solely on him. So that's what I mean about the long term effect is, I mean, even with the God Killer sword of, using that within um the Wonder War, and we see that Lex Luthor has it. It's like, no, that why are you using such thing within it doesn't have that sort of significance truly in Wonder Woman's story. So why are we emphasizing certain elements of, a movie that has long since passed that iteration, but it doesn't really convey well with Wonder Woman's ongoing comic book story?
Well, okay. Let me address all of that. All right. So, God Killer Sword. Do you know where that debuted in?
I know that it came from Tony and with Deathstroke. I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
However, it's the fact that it was still taken to that sort of thing, and it feels superficial. It feels not very genuine in connection to Diane. She's not a god killer.
Well, it's
She
not.
does
It's
not
not.
need she's not, but what I'm saying is with that sword, they've taken it from the purpose of it being Deathstrokes, or and they try to integrate it within more of Diana's world and essentially make it seem like Diana is the god killer.
Which it
And
shouldn't.
right. So within the movie, though, she wants the killer sword, and it's implied or so that she is the god killer, and she's not.
Well, remember, the sword isn't the God Killer in the movie.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that just these certain things, though, whether you mix match them, interpretations or whatever, the revisionist thing is still that certain elements within the movie, no matter what, just um, mashing things together, it's still bled into the comics.
And that's gonna happen no matter what. That's more of a DC Comics thing. It's not necessarily the
I mean,
problem with the movie.
that's true, but it's still the just that overall general outlook of Diana. Period. Even with the bow skirt, I really am sick of the bow skirt because she's not that sort of. It just emphasized so much of the ideal of that misinterpretation of who Diana is. She's not a warrior in that superficial sense. She's not a god killer. She's not, you know, um, Jesus's age. She's not, she's not obsessed with the first man she ever met. She's not this dark, um, character that sort of Gail did portray because she wanting wanting her to fit into this narrative of her being mysterious and kind of like a Selena Light in a way when she interacted with Batman, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm saying is that it's certain things that became a long-term effect for her, and it really stems still from the movie.
I can see that. But then you also have the scenes like with the No Man's Land scene where it's like Steve even says, we didn't come to help these people," and Diana says, "No, we didn't, but it's what I'm going to do." And she just gets up there and like does her No Man's Land thing. And that's the thing about this is like, well, let's talk about the positives that this movie brought up. Now it's standard for at least animated Diana to be from this region and have an accent. It's because of this, Britt.
Well, yeah, I get that, and that's fine. I mean,
and it's like, and now again, what works for a movie doesn't always work for a comic, and I'm totally fine with that. For the movie, it was more of the idea of like these heroes. They like Superman is the first one to be openly a hero because the world is a very brutal place. I mean, Diana would have seen World War I and II and the Cold War and all that stuff. So it's like, it's established she protected people from the shadows. She wasn't very out there. It wasn't until Superman showed up that like he encouraged them to, like, for lack of a better term, come out of the closet. Now they did turn her into Selena Light. I do acknowledge that, but that was more of like she's very reserved because again, none of these people are used to relying on other people. It's like even when it's like Batman had just lost Robin. Aquaman is like isolated because he doesn't know where he fits in. Barry Allen is doesn't fit in because he's trying to help his father get out of prison. And Victor Stone was just blown up and turned into a cyborg. So none of them are really like all put together. But it's like when they start to come together, that's when they start acting like they're, for lack of a better term, comic selves.
Sort of.
We may have to watch the Snyder Cut again, Britt. But so then you get to the cultural impact. Like it or not, first off, the movie did very well at the box office. And because previous to this, you had the problem with, do female comic book movies actually sell? Because you had like Catwoman, which apparently is a movie that you enjoy. I have no idea how. And it proved that you can have like a popular female character have their own movie. And again, was the movie perfect representation of Wonder Woman? Was the Snyderverse a perfect representation of Wonder Woman? No. Did it make because Wonder Woman pre-movie, I would say, was a negative A-lister approaching B-list, and the movie firmly like established her as an A-list character.
I mean, that's fine and true, but I just wish that it wouldn't have been that she had to be written in a way of being a Selena Light, of being that she basically that socialite that Diana never was,
Well, here's the thing, Britt. That's only for like one scene.
I mean, but that was her whole thing, though, a little bit.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
That wasn't her whole thing in BVS.
I mean, it was with the whole mysterious things and her interaction with Batman, I would say. Okay, majority of her scenes with Bruce was that, for sure. That you wouldn't think that that's Diana. You would definitely think of her as Selena. That is my issue with that.
But it's like beyond that, when she's not with Bruce, let's talk about that because she only interacts with Bruce in like 2 scenes, and then through email.
I mean, within the majority of the time of BVS, Justice League, and yeah, Wonder Woman, she is interacting with him through email, but it's still the fact that we have to have her still within the context of Steve. So now you not only do you deal with Selena Light with Bruce, but you're dealing with fish out of water, obsessed with the person that she meets, basically Little Mermaid Light as well.
She
No.
wasn't obsessed with Steve in the Snyder Cut or any of the other movies. She mentioned him. She mentioned him literally once,
Her motivation.
just to say, I once knew a man who would love to fly it. We're referencing Batman's troop carrier, and she wasn't obsessed with Batman. So it's like, where's that coming from?
I didn't say that. I'm saying that her motivation of just her attitude with needing, to, I guess, be on a team or be out of the shadows or whatever. It was still because of her 100-year grief for Steve.
Not necessarily. Okay. Here's the thing. Here was the problem, and this is a lot of ways. The movie made it about Steve because because at the end of BVS when they're at Superman's funeral, Diana just mentions 100 years ago I walked away from mankind. Man made a world where standing together is impossible. It wasn't about Steve in that line, but the movie, because Patty Jenkins is like Tom King and has an obsession with Steve Trevor, she made it about Steve.
I mean, but we can still say that Zach did kind of have that idea that Diana learned love, from Steve. So
that wasn't even in the Snyderverse. Let's be fair about that. That wasn't in a movie. That was a
it
rejected
wasn't
idea.
in the movie. It was a rejected idea, but it's the fact that it was something that came about that basically was a catapult to that characterization that we did get in the 2017 movie. Mm-hmm.
I still say no because even when Zach brought in Alan Heinberg to write it, that's what this is written by. So it's like I'm still not seeing it.
The thing is, no. Did she need to learn love from Steve? No. However, that element though was still that motivation, I would say. It was still something in there that why did she walk away from humanity? And we got that answer, and it was Steve. If it wasn't, I mean, was Snyder still communicating with Patty and everything like that? And that whole part of this world building of, just still, it doesn't matter. Even that one line where she does mention him, it's still the fact that certain things have her thinking of Steve. It's even, wasn't it when, Superman kicked the bucket, she looked down because she's thinking of herself, of Steve dying or whatever. So yeah, it's still, it might be subtle, but it's not. But that is the whole motivation of her character. We don't really see her motivation.
But it's like even in this movie, it's established she helped people from the shadows, so she didn't walk 100% away.
Yeah, but Diana is not a shadow character.
Here's the problem. This is a world that was established to be like if superheroes existed in the real world. This isn't necessarily the DC world per se. I understand what you're saying, and you are right to a degree. I 100% acknowledge that. It's just it's like when we're dealing with like this particular like world of DC characters, this was very much like the more like grounded if these characters existed in the real world. So realistically, that's kind of the way a character like that would probably be. But again, she still saved people. She still came out of retirement to help out Manswell against Doomsday. And then remember in the Snyder Cut, she was the one that got Vector Stone to being a superhero again.
I don't know. I still don't agree with just her character. Even if it was a realistic, world, realistically, the Diana that we know just would not be in the shadows, and she would not be Selena Light. She would not just that whole thing. It was very misguided.
I'll give you that. All right, we'll agree to disagree on that, but the negative impact that this movie had, Britt, the real negative impact is that because this movie did so well, Warner Brothers basically told Patty Jenkins she can do whatever she wants with the sequel.
I mean, yeah, and she emphasized more on speed. But I
I think
mean,
it's because her father was a fighter pilot, so I think that's why.
most of it sounds like most of DC's or WB's like higher ups or whatever creatives, they have some form of connection with the military or certain occupations, within that, whether it is a father, a uncle, or a brother or something like that. So yeah, it makes sense of why that self-insertion happened. Honestly, a lot of times of with these creators, they feel the need to self-insert.
Oh,
Whether it's
yeah.
the love interest they try to force upon Diana, whether it is another supposed to be supporting character of for her, or Diana herself to big up another character that they prefer.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to so the idea of Red Sonja, it exists because it's like the big fantasy movie. It got kind of a cult classic like status, but it didn't really have the cultural impact that like Conan the Barbarian had. Then you have 2017 where it was like the big movie of 2017, and it was the big moment of like female empowerment movies, and it still is like one of the most influential superhero movies out now. In fact, whenever anyone talks about like anyone that's like heavily hatred on the Snyder Cut, they always point to this movie as okay, this is one of the good ones.
Yeah.
So there's that. So then you get to the difference essentially with these characters is that Sonja is more of like the survivalist, and Diana is more of the like gods amongst men, like hero that embodies the best of both worlds, the god and the divine and the mortal, if you will. So in conclusion, so Britt, what do you think of Red Sonja as a character?
Overall, she is a very interesting character, and I would love to read, her books now.
Hell yeah! And Dynamite provides ample like examples of stuff to read. So I'll make you a list this weekend. And it's like when you really think about it, neither of these two people are the bloodthirsty warriors that the internet tries to force them to be. Isn't that funny?
True, true.
So now let's get to the crossover story. Spoiler alert, a portal opens.
Yeah, a portal open for sure. So the core theme of this um is basically two legendary warriors meet, but they fight for very different reasons. Red Sonja, she believes the world survives through strength and, lethal force fight or anything, you know. Um, basically do everything you can by any means necessary. But Diana believes strength exists to protect and uplift others. So through their journey, each woman learns from the other, but Diana ultimately proves that compassion is the greatest form of power, even on the battlefield.
Act one.
So Act One, a warrior taken or the warrior taken. Um, on the mascara, Diana is training, and this really sets up of how Diana is learning, self-defense type things or other moves that's, like I said, is non-lethal or it is to subdue instead of just completely knock someone out cold or, things like that. And she meditates. That is her training. Um, and Hippolyta, she watches her, she watches everything Diana does because she's so proud. And again, it emphasizes that Diana is um, Hippolyta's gift for all of the trauma that she's gone through, of every battle that she has fought. You know, the one thing that has come out of all of that tragedy is her greatest gift, which is Diana. So you see that Diana is so unique from the other Amazons that she doesn't fight to be brutal. She fights for just well, she fights for peace. And she fights, even if it is a brutal battle, it's kind of like she's dancing in such a graceful way. So later, I would say within this, first part that you get the perspective of all the Amazons really of, well, not all of them, but specific ones that has really gone through similar sort of tragedy that Red Sonja has gone through in their life, their reincarnated life now on the mascara. So when Diana is leaving, she goes back to Julia and Vanessa. And yes, this story is set pretty much in Perez run. I would say really to not have Diana so innocent, but because I like that, you know, throughout Perez run and towards the end, Diana learned so much and she learned not to so much be naive, but still keep her innocence. As much as whatever she went through, she still found a way to be optimistic.
Exactly.
So, Julia and Vanessa, they're going through ancient texts. Here is where the portal opens. Um, um, Julia explains something is going on. It's really, really strange. Um, there's this prophecy or whatnot that is or a myth that's describing a warrior from another age whose sword could tear holes into the world. And then suddenly violent magical storm tears the sky. A blade of ancient sorcery opens the portal, and Diana is pulled through it.
There you go.
So there we go with the portal opening.
So Act 2, the Hyborian World.
So here Diana crashes into the brutal battlefield. She has no idea what's going on. It's just basically fight or flight. She has to, on instinct, just go with the flow of things, and um, it's not really a breather for her at all. So she has to protect herself at first go. So you see armies clashing, you see warriors screaming, but what really catches her eye is red hair, and you see her just going um all over the place, fighting out of a complex feeling of joy, but also this feeling of what she needs to do. And so she basically tells Diana, so you're looking to die. And Diana's like, no, I'm kind of seek peace and trying to get my way home.
I like that, and I love how Sony says, "So you're not trying to, so you're seeking peace. You're in the wrong world." I love
Yes.
that. Act 3, 2 warrior ideals.
So with this, the two women reluctantly fight together against a tyrant sorcerer who plans to conquer kingdoms. During their journey, Sonya's philosophy is basically she teaches Diana that you have to fight brutally to survive this world. It might be different in your world, but here you have to fight. There's no hesitation. There's no. It's not that you don't have remorse, but at that moment you can't have remorse. No, you can't. It's just that you just can't hesitate. So, you know, what she tells Diana is basically mercy gets people killed. Like I said, that hesitation gets people killed, and strength commands respect. So if you basically force your power, then you will get respect. And then fear controls army. Diana knows, especially from Bruce, that fear, you're gonna make people scared of you instead of trust you as who you are. And no, does does it seem like you're naive? It just all depends on how, you control the situation. And it doesn't mean control the person. It just means, to have a better outcome than deaths or more wars, things
Mhm.
like that. while she constantly challenges Diana, and it's basically where she's trying to push Diana over the edge. And it is to sort of a character study of how Diana is not the one to push over the edge. Like I said, Diana can throw hands, but she isn't going to turn into Injustice Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
So Diana refuses to abandon her ideas. No matter what you do, no matter how, you know, how much you try to test her, she will come out on top because her way is, you know, is just her way. It's her heart. It's her beliefs, and she will never compromise that. So with Diana, she frees. So you see that she's free. She's freeing prisoners. Instead of abandoning them, she's giving them motivational speeches and trying to help people. She negotiates, um, and she also inspires villagers. As that. Well, her way of being a champion um, of the oppressed, and with that, she motivates Sonya to not be so hardcore, but maybe she can at least open up a little bit to help other people. She does, but at the same time, it's not to the extent that Diana does.
Yeah, 100%. I like that. I like that. So Diana is being the inspiration that she should always be.
Right. So the Sword and Lasso. So the sorcerer summons a monstrous god beast. Whatever your mind can come up with of what that is. So a massive battle erupts. This is the first time Diana fully embraces the brutality of the world. Now, this is when she has to pick up the sword because, of course, with a god beast or whatever, what is she going to do? She can't talk to the thing. So it's like, okay, so now I do have to throw some hands. So she draws the sword, and her Amazon training explodes into motion. And this is basically a callback to the very beginning of how Diana trained herself. Is that even if it is a brutal battle, she still has her grace. So this is something very different from Sonya. Diana fights fiercely, but it's not to be cruel. She still protects the innocent, the civilians, and everything. She even defends Sonya. She has her back. But she refuses to kill the enemy when they are subdued. While Sonya, she feels like, no, you're going to get your head decapitated, or you're going to get the sword somewhere through your heart, whatever, but you're going to die. But with seeing Diana and her restraint of her grace, it truly begins to inspire Sonya, and she now understands Diana's perspective. Even Diana does understand Sonya's perspective because, of course, as we always do, the characters do, talk about themselves, have that, character moment, and Sonya does tell her backstory. And that really connects to Diana because, again, she carries the trauma of the Amazon. Notice she didn't deal with the trauma, but she is still that spiritual, um, she still has that spiritual connection, and that is what motivates her. And so she is helping another woman get through that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I always love in stories when like Diana connects to like another female hero or character. Well, actually, I'll count Sonya as a hero on like that level of hey, we're both women because there is a certain commonality that you. It's like how like guys instantly relate to each other just in the fact that we're dudes.
Right.
I always enjoy that. So next one, Act 5, the Sisters of Battle.
So, of course, they work together, and the god beast and the sorcerer is defeated. I would say that Sonya got her way, and they did kill the beast.
Mm-hmm.
The sorcerer, I would say probably Diana wrapped the lasso and made him see the truth and basically not so quickly reform himself or have that redemption, but it's just something about that to make him see his own truth is that, he used powers, false powers really, to control people. And honestly, he is very much a coward, you know. So that is that with that battle. Um, so the portal begins to reopen. It's time for Diana to go back home. Um, Sonya gives her a gift, which is basically a cloak and the same outfit or, whatever that
Oh, Diana
Sonya
has,
has.
has, has her own bikini armor
So she,
now?
yeah, so she has her own. Well, Diana has to wear it. So I would say this is basically an extra one because she does have one on um, within this time now anyway. So Sonya tells her, um, she says, try not to make your world too soft, which, it, I mean, at the end of the day, Diana, like Sewell, had her say, if she can learn what war is, what she wants to do is have it as a very last resort or not exist at all. You know, you are going to have conflict. That's, people have to agree to disagree or things like that. You're going to have confrontation, things like that. But at the same time, it doesn't have to end in bloodshed. And that's
Yeah.
basically Diana's whole point. So, Diana does reply to her that, try not to forget that the world can be more than a battlefield, that you don't have to fight every single day. You have to find joy. You have to find something that gives you peace. So they clasp her arms, as warrior to warrior, and then Diana disappears into the portal.
And then the portal closes.
Right. So Diana's back home, and she's back in Boston. I would say that honestly, I would actually add that she goes to the mascara first,
Mhm.
and tell Hippolyta about her adventure, you know, or maybe that's actually at the end. Actually, she does end up back in Boston, because of course the portal is going to take you where it took you in the first place. Um, Judy and Vanessa sees her, rushes over to her, and they love her as her adoptive family. Anything that happens to her, it hurts them, and you see that love and that motherly sisterly bond that they have. So Diana ends up telling kind of um what happened to her. Vanessa is kind of like, what do you have on? Because that is something. Um, and just then,
Clark takes one look at her and starts going, baseball, cold
yeah,
showers.
so a voice lands behind her and it's Clark, and he's kind of like, yeah, wow, like very much the cold shower thing. Um, and so it's just a fun little moment, from that emotional journey. Diana's back home and she has these lighter moments, and she definitely needs that lighter moment. So, of course, Cal is looking at her and they have a moment of flirtation. And you have Vanessa, of course, as their biggest cheerleader.
Mhm.
This is also, I would say, right before or um, when Vanessa turns into Silver Swan. I would say that, maybe.
Okay, I
Um,
see.
so she's a little bit more mature and she's just, Cal and Diana's biggest cheerleader as she was in Perez, right?
There you
Um,
go.
so so now we can go to the final scene.
Oh, okay.
So the final scene is Diana later that night. She is maybe on a rooftop or something, or they're just sitting among the clouds or something like that. I would say that Cal probably had dinner with them because I just think that it's really, really cute of what Perez was setting up and how again Vanessa was a bigger supporter having Julia and everything. But um, yeah, she's basically lost in thought. of she's of two minds. She did take heed to what Sonya said, but she also, again, she's not changing her beliefs. So she knows that one world was brutal, the other it has potential. It has that hope that things can get better. She thinks about, her having a sword, but then she sees that she knows that she has the lasso. And honestly, both are tools and both are necessary at their um especially the sword at certain points. It's not so much as necessary for everything, but only one defines her, which is the lasso of truth. And that is who Diana is. She is the embodiment of truth, and the truth is basically what makes her her,
Yeah.
you know. Um
So what's
so
the final message of the story?
So this is pretty much, of course, you see the differences between how Sonya has, dealt with her world and what she has to do. She has to continue fighting. So there's no room for peace. There's no room for joy and, this sort of happiness that Diana has. But at the same time, Diana, she has so Sonya is about survival. Diana is about transforming, the world and making it better instead of just keeping the world the way it is and trying to survive it. You have to do something to change things, and that's what Diana is all about. But Red Sonja is still giving you that realistic perspective that even in our world, you have to continue to fight for what you need, for what you want. And it is a battle of survival.
Hmm. I love that. So, great story as always, Brett. The
Thanks.
portal closes. So, tell me what you think of Green Lantern number 20. By
Okay.
the way, I will say real quick before you start that the image of Kyle Rayner with an Indiana Jones hat will never not be cool.
So, number one, I love Jack Herbert's art.
Hmm.
Funny thing that you used his Superman and Wonder Woman hug on the previous panel.
Yeah.
Um, and he loves to channel Alex Ross's art. So yeah, his honestly, I don't know why he isn't on a high profile or big story arc, or a big story, or a big book, because his art is just so phenomenal, and he really knows how to be expressive with the characters. He just knows how to be detailed, so detailed with the art. Um, but the Fractured Spectrum storyline, it follows how investigating dangerous Red Lantern energy while the emotional spectrum becomes unstable. Then you basically have Hal dealing with that while Kyle Rayner, Superboy, and Odyssey is searching for, search the source wall for an energy artifact, which is kind of cool that you're able to have two plot lines going at the same time, but it doesn't take away too much of from either whoever character.
Yeah.
Um, you also have this serious character drama with the lighter tone of or the lighter adventure, and as you pointed out, having the hat, that is supposed to be funny. So you have these moments where you got the action, the drama, the emotional, probably the emotional tolls and stuff, but also the have these funny moments that at least not everything is bad and turning upside down. So again,
Exactly. Hmm.
you have the artwork by Jack, and again, he's very detailed. You know, the colors are still popping out amazing. You know, again, some okay, so it will be, I say it was balanced, but some would probably feel like, okay, you're going from dark to light, in the same issue.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it works because of who the characters are, and that it is an ensemble anyway. Um, so yeah, you do have, of course, the cliffhanger that is basically, but you still are pushing the story forward, and it's not as earlier issues where it felt a little decompressed or anything. It's just this time it's going, but you're just leaving off a cliffhanger for the next issue.
Yeah, exactly. And by speaking of cliffhanger, again, that Red Lantern energy thing, again, that is going to be, you're starting to see a little bit more of the larger plot that, like, and this is the thing, it's like, again, with Adams, like, teasing stuff that's like, that like goes all the way throughout this. But it's like the Fractured Spectrum is like one of the best Green Lantern stories I've ever read. I agree. I love Herbert's art, and particularly, and again, the coloring on this. Again, Green Lantern coloring is always like one of the most important parts of a Green Lantern book, and I'm so glad they actually nailed it. And yeah, I agree with you that this issue should have an 8 out of 10. I too was like a little bit like, okay, so you're constantly flipping back and forth between Hal and Kyle, but at least it's between Hal and Kyle and not like Hal and some random character. So it's like still Green Lantern related. Plus,
Exactly.
plus it's always fun to see the source wall.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you guys know, last week I said I'm never going to review Bomb Queen again. Thank God. So, Brits assigned me to read the Marvel Comics Storm from 2024, and I'm so glad I did. First off, I didn't have to worry about picking pictures because Storm is fully clothed in this issue, unlike Bomb Queen. So let me start off by saying this. So, how much of like X-Men comics at the time do you know about, Britt?
You mean here at this point?
In terms of like what's going on in like the X-Men lore.
Oh yeah, I know nothing.
All right, so remember I told you they were on that island? Well, the island is like undone and like the X-Men are scattered. That's like the From the Ashes storyline that's currently going on. And so it's like you have a lot of these other X-Men stories going on right now and seeing like the aftermath of like the fall of Krakoa. Storm is currently on the Avengers because Thor is being investigated for like a murder he didn't do, but it's like so Storm takes place on the Avengers, and this is the Jen McKay Avengers that just wrapped up, and so and that's also where like Orcus comes from, because you remember when Storm is saving that one guy, that's with Orcus. So what Orcus is, that's the organization that's like leading the extermination of mutants currently, like Emma and Iron Man are currently at this point in the comics facing them. Although Iron Man has this really weird armor, I'll explain that later. But I come out this. So writer Merwewa Ayodele. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but this is why. When Britt previously told me that the writer of the Storm book needs to write Wonder Woman, now I understand. Because, case in point, when like that like Orcus person is discovering the rubble, Storm still saves them. He says, "We save everyone, no matter what." And I'm like, that's 100% Diana. It's like all of this is 110% who Diana is. And as soon as I was reading this, I was like, yeah, I could see this is 100% like I could see why Britt is saying that this writer needs to write Storm. I like the homage to the different costumes, and I like how like there is a mutant that's dealing with that, like when their powers manifest, a lot of people died, and that's reigniting some anti-mutant tensions, and Storm is trying to juggle that, because in many ways she is like the like ambassador of few mutants, another way that she's like Wonder Woman. And I really dug where like she's dealing with like prejudice, with like the prejudice that comes from that. Then you also have Locust Wernick's art really pops, and the coloring with like all the lightning pages just completely annihilates it with this in the best way possible. So I straight up just give this issue a straight 9 out of 10. This is fantastic. So
Wonderful. Yeah.
thank you, Britt, for finally giving me a book. I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about okay, what can I add to this? What can I show and not get the video demonetized?
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, it was funny to me.
No, let me put it this way. I enjoyed Bomb Queen. Just that last issue, I'm like,
Understood.
It's all good. It's all good. I still had fun. So then you get to Absolute Superman number 17, which is Superman versus Parasite. I liked Superman teaming up with like Hawkman to fight the Parasite creature, and how the Parasite wants you to be afraid, so it'll flood you with the brain chemicals that make you afraid, so that you're generating more energy for it to eat. And I like how this book really took a more horror vibes, because not only is like Superman battling like the creature, but you also have Absolute Brainiac like murdered Lex Luthor's family, and I'm like, wow, like that's something. And Ra's al Ghul is freed by Talia in this. The only part I didn't like is like Hawkman, like, you know, that scene in like any movie where like these two people that like talk and argue a lot, and someone will call them a like is that your girlfriend? That's what happened in this issue, and I'm like, oh man.
Well, it was definitely a horror issue. So
yeah, exactly. But other than that, I really dug this. I think it really long way, and I liked a lot of the action. I also like Clark intimidating Hawkman and basically saying, because Hawkman came to Superman originally and said, hey, work with Lazarus, and then we won't have any problems. And then Superman essentially says, yeah, Superman is not for sale. I'm not going to do the will of your masters of the Lazarus Corporation. So I'm like, okay, that is a Superman moment. I like that. But yeah, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because of the Chloe stuff. But everything else, I'm like, I mostly enjoyed. I liked the art is really good on this. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna give it. So Britt, do you agree with my rating of Absolute Superman 17?
no.
What would you give it?
4.
Oh my gosh, you're so mean.
So the art is good, of course. It does have the horror vibe as it was, what it was going for. Just the whole thing of Superman basically becoming exactly like Mainline in a sense. I don't really care of that the technicalities. It's still technically he is moving towards that quote unquote classic version or the mainline version. And just the Chloe thing, it just feels like honestly you don't have that build up to it. You don't even have that sort of dynamic or chemistry or whatever that you're supposed to. It's more of an expectation that they have to be together, even in a major Elseworlds or whatever, or alternate universe, they have to be together. But that was the point. Why would you're killing off the L's, you're killing off the Kents and everything like that, but you're going back to the same thing of Lois. And then not only that, but that's a contradiction and a double standard because Lois still worked for Lazarus. So it's kind of like she's part of the oppression. Just because now all of a sudden she wants to become a reporter, again, it's just going back to the same thing of mainline. This is supposed to be totally different. So why are we doing mainline things? Yeah, it's just like, okay, whatever.
Right. That's fair enough. I'll give you that. But yeah, overall, mostly enjoyable issue. I'll give it that. But all in all, a pretty great episode. Yeah, so Red Sonja is a very cool character, and again, Britt, I'll give you a reading list to check her out at the end of this. And yeah, it's one of those characters where it's like, if any DC writer is watching this somehow, please stop trying to push Diana into being purely the warrior, because she's more than that. So is Sonja, but the Diana's particularly. But I think it's a good place to leave it. So, Britt, do you have Britt, did you have anything to add?
Oh no, I was totally agreeing with you.
Okay, and so Britt, do you have any stories you want to tease us with?
Okay, so of course we have Odyssey and Shelter, also the last chapter of Awakens, or is I would say the last chapter and the epilogue. So it's probably 2 chapters actually. Um, and then I also have a one shot that I'm wrapping up. 2 one shots that I'm wrapping up. One for tonight, and the other is more of a spiritual, like being guidance of Diana. Of basically, she's going around the world to save the world. Um, a- Again, I am going through a Twitter, like a Twitter thread sort of story idea thing. Um, and that was one of them. I also have Diana adopting a child. That story, I really love creating, you know, these different scenarios for Diana and how it really does fit her. Because yeah, while she can have a biological daughter, it is something still about Diana adopting a child too. Eh, because it shows her love for every child around the world, and especially a child of another culture, because she is still within, well, she represents multiculturalism. So, that really speaks to her. So I'm trying to really emphasize on that, yeah, the mascara is multicultural, and that should be emphasized more on, you know, with DC themselves. I'm also doing more Twitter threads. I have a Perez dynamic comparison, basically of all the relationships that were established within his run and how they all connect to make a full, this full circle thing. I have thinking about, maybe it's not so much as a thread, but it's basically saying the Trinity as a concept is very superficial, and it's the reason why you have the contrived, superficial, you know, um, other trinities. Like you have the Dark Trinity with Jason, Artemis, and Bizarro. You have, I think they tried to have, like, in the Trinity book, the Rebirth Trinity book, they tried to have the villains of Cersei, I think it was Lex and or Zod and Joker at one point. Um, they try to have John in so many different quote unquote trinities, whether it's Yara and Jace, Damien and Cassie, or um, John, um, Damien now Trinity. Just these different Trinity team ups or whatever. It really does not make sense for the characters. So I don't know whether to have that as like a few tweets or to have it as a full thread. Then any other thread is going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit of criticism here and there. And I also have my big post crisis review.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And as for me, well, by the way, our next episode on the schedule, I believe, is why Diana does Diana need a kid? Oh, that's gonna be a fun one. That's gonna be this Saturday. That is so well timed, Britt.
Yes, it is.
But as far as so there's that, and then movie night is gonna be Terminator, and be sure to because this is coming out on Monday. Be sure to watch the recording of Amazon Answers, where I talk about the Justice League Dark series from DC Rebirth that featured Wonder Woman. Stay at work, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod or Satan. Zoe Samaxabat for life. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.